If we were in your home or my home, we would probably be talking about where we were on 9/11. It's a 10-year anniversary this year. That's a day that none of us will ever forget, and that kids will ask us about, just like maybe they ask you, where were you when John F. Kennedy was shot? I remember I was ironing in a bedroom in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Not anything important, but it certainly etched into my brain. Where was I when the Challenger blew up? Things that changed history. I was in an ice cream shop on Wisconsin Avenue buying a double scoop cone of butter pecan ice cream. Where were you on 9/11? And what did you learn from it, and what do you remember most? Until I realized how all of us have this story, that it's part of our life, I thought mine wasn't worth telling because it's rather trivial. It's rather trivial when you think of the disaster, the loss, the grief, and the hurt that came directly into so many families on that day. That's not part of my story. I was in Italy, as a matter of fact. I had gone there with a group of artists. We had been in Italy about 10 days, carrying our art around, putting up shows. It was from Gallery 10 in Washington, D.C. There were 15 of us. We had been to a town outside Florence and had a very successful show and left it there. And then we went on to Venice. Venice, the magical place, the most magical place in the world. And we put up artwork and left it there, saw the city, ate great food, and then Jim and I boarded a train to go to a place I'd never heard of, Montecatini. Montecatini, Italy is a spa, a well-known spa in Europe. Been there for years, the hot baths, you know, the mud, all the things that heal you and make you look beautiful. Was known as a spa center, and it also had an academia, a museum, and they were going to show some of our work. We arrived, Jim and I checked into our hotel. It was the Hotel Reale. It has a great, gracious name, and in its day, it must have been a very gracious hotel. It was not one of the important hotels, although it was important enough to have an elder hostel from America meeting there at the same time. A generous lobby, beautiful carpet, and a wide staircase that wound upstairs. Fortunately, it also had an elevator. That is a big thing for me. But it had a big classroom in the back, glass windows, and that's where the elder hostel met. It also came with breakfast and dinner if you wanted to buy that option, which we did. It would save us, for the 4 days that we were going to be in Montecatini, hunting up a restaurant every night, unless we really hated the food. It was a nice restaurant, and all the elder hostel, of course, was eating there every single night. They had their section, and they gathered as a group, and they talked among themselves, and sometimes they even sang. The rest of us were a mix of Americans and Europeans and Italians, of course. Well, Jim and I checked in, and we had a few days. We were there for 2 days. We arrived on the 9th, and we were there for those couple of days working with the art show, getting to see the town, taking the tram to the top of the mountain so that we could see the view, all those things that you have to do when you're touristing. And we were, and we love Italy. On September the 11th, we woke up fairly early, but we were tired. There was no air conditioning in our room, so the window was up. And a slight breeze was just wafting sort of organdy curtains into the room. I remember waking up and looking and seeing the movement of those curtains. It was lovely, peaceful. We got up, we went, we had our breakfast, as we had been doing, in the cafeteria downstairs. I think we sat with somebody, I'm not sure. I know that one of the people we met from the elder hostel was somewhere in New England. She was a judge, and we had had some really interesting conversations with her. We went out for a walk around the town, checking things out, going by the big spa, deciding would we or would we not try to get an appointment. Just enjoying being there. We came back to the Hotel Reale in time for lunch. And afterwards, we were on vacation. We went upstairs for a nap. We knew that the elder hostel was gathering. They had their classes every day from noon to about 2 or 3 after lunch. So when we came downstairs about 3 o'clock, I was ambling down the stairs. I could hear that Jim was following me. Oh, it was such a nice way to enter the lobby that I liked to walk down. And of course, you went by the computers, which were on the landing. There was no line. That was odd, because with so many Americans in the hotel, there was always a crush to get your time on the computer. And as I turned to come into the lobby, the concierge came dashing across the lobby. "Senora, senora, come, 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 come," motioning for me to follow him. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I turned around and said, "Jim, Jim, come on." And he ran into the classroom in the back where the elder hostel met. It was set up like an auditorium with chairs, and there was a big TV in the front of the room. And as I walked in, I looked up and I saw the skyline of New York City on the screen of the TV. There wasn't a human sound in the room, just the voices coming out of the TV. And I watched as an airplane headed right toward the Twin Towers. And I thought, oh my God, they're back here. They're watching a Bruce Willis movie. And then the words sank in from the commentator. And I looked at the stricken faces all around the room. And Jim and I dropped in to 2 empty seats at the back of the room to watch as that broadcast continues. I don't have to describe it to you. We have all seen it. We know now what was happening, that the world was changing right before our eyes. I remember so how fear just gripped my heart as the whole thing settled in, and I grabbed Jim's arm and I said, I want to email our kids. By that time, we knew that a plane had also hit in Washington. And as I ran back up the stairs, I was the first one to think of email, I guess. I don't know, because the seats were all empty and I had no problem accessing my AOL. And when I opened it up, there was a note from my daughter here in Washington. "Don't worry. I've called everybody. We're all right. More later." We went to our room and the concierge came up there and he showed us how to turn on our television so that we could get it in English. And Jim and I sat on the side of the bed just clutching each other. We were 3,000 or so miles from home. And that was not where we had wanted to be. That morning we were happy, and it was wonderful to be right there in Italy, in this adventure of our own. And now the only place we wanted to be was here at home. There was only thing that we looked at each other, and Jim said, "I feel so helpless. I can't." He's a doctor. "I can't volunteer. I can't do." There was one thing we agreed we could do. And so we walked the half a dozen blocks to the Catholic Church for the 5:30 Mass. And we recognized a lot of other people that we had seen in our hotel at the Elder Hostel. We saw some of the people who were in our artist group, who we knew were Catholic, also coming to Mass. And during the service, we couldn't understand what the priest was saying at the service, but we certainly recognized the name Eustatus Unitas. And we knew that he was preaching and praying for the people in New York. And as we left the church, people would see us, and you do stand out if you're not a regular. And you also stand out because you bought your clothes in America. They're not exactly the same. And strangers would walk up to us, tap us on the shoulder, and just hug us. Because they too wanted to reach out, to do something, to say how sorry they were that this nightmare had just happened in the United States. Later, they told us that the skies were closed. There were no flights, because when you're away and something like that happens, what do you think? How can I get home as quick as I can? And there was no way that we could get home because the planes weren't flying. So we knew that we had another 10 days to spend in Europe, however best we can. But what we learned during that period was the humanity of people all over the country, all over the world, and how they wanted to reach out and to touch Americans, to have some kind of personal touch with a stranger whose land had been so hurt by that act of terrorism. I think when I think about this, and when I want to tell that story to my grandchildren, to my great-grandchildren, I hope, or to you, that's what I came home with. We did have to wait 2 weeks to get a plane. We had to go to Marseille to get it. And when I stepped on that plane and I sat down, Jim was on the aisle, I was in the middle, and there was a young Frenchman sitting next to me. And tears started to stream down my cheeks as the plane began to move. And he said, "Madam, are you all right?" And I said, "I think so. I'm going home." Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to my story. Come to Friendship Village Community Center the third Wednesday of the month. Free to you.